Hello, today we are going to take a look at using measurements. One thing with measurements is the difference between precision and accuracy. So I want to make sure you understand the difference between these two terms. Precision is going to focus on how close measurements are to each other. So if you have a bunch of different measurements, we're going to take a look and see if the measurements that you're getting are all close together. Accuracy is going to focus on how close the measurements are to an accepted or known value. So if you have a certain number that you are trying to get to, we're going to take a look at all of the measurements that you have and see if they're close to that value that you're trying to focus on. So that's the big difference between precision and accuracy. Another topic that comes up with measurements is significant figures. And this is going to come up a great deal when we're trying to look at rounding and how many decimal places to bring our answers to. So I put some examples up here, and we're going to go through and we're going to figure out how many significant figures, they'll also call them significant digits, each of these numbers has. So if we start with 38.9, what we're going to do is we're just going to count how many numbers this has. So it has 1, 2, 3 significant figures. Let's put that up there. Okay. Now if we look at 9.2, 9.2, we're going to do the same thing we did on the last one. We're going to count how many significant figures it has. And on this one, we are going to have 1, 2 significant figures. And I put one down here that just has a little bit more with the decimal. So if we look at 2.8017, I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to count how many digits it has. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 significant figures. Now when we're looking at rounding and problems where we have to solve for area or volume or different measurements like that, we'll take a look at how to use significant figures to determine how many places to carry out my answer to. So if we look at a word problem, Sally needs to find the area of her living room so that she can purchase new flooring. The length of the room is 14.87 feet and the width is 9.15 feet. What is the area of the living room? Now we're going to assume that her living room's a rectangle here. And we know for the area formula, we are going to do length times width. So I have the length and I have the width. I'm going to go and plug those in. So I have 14.87 feet times 9.15 feet. And one thing that would be good to focus on before you even start this is how many significant figures each of these numbers has. So 14.87 and 9.15. 14.87, I'm just going to go and count the digits, and that one is going to have 4 significant figures. So let's put that up here. (9.15) is going to have 3 significant figures. So what we're going to do now at this point, you're going to take a look at the values involved, whether there's 2 different numbers you're multiplying or 3, however many there are, and you're going to figure out how many significant figures each of them has. Whatever is the lower value, that is going to be how many significant figures your answer needs to have. So in this case, the 9.15 had 3 significant figures, which means my answer needs to have 3 significant figures. So I'm going to do 14.87 times 9.15, and my answer is going to come out to 136.0605. And just a little side note here, we're dealing with area, so we want to have feet squared or square feet. But that's not going to be my final answer because I need to have 3 significant figures. So my answer for this one is going to be 136 square feet because I can only have 3 significant figures. So even though there's a decimal, I need 3. So I'm going to look at the 0 right here, which is going to tell me to keep it at 136. So my final answer for this one would be 136 square feet. Another topic that comes up with choosing the correct units of measure is looking at different scenarios. So for instance, if we had something like the speed of a car, you could look at miles per hour, or you could look at something like feet per second. So you want to make sure that when you're dealing with different situations, you're picking the appropriate units that will allow you to do whatever type of measurement they're asking you. And you're also going to want to make sure that you know the difference between dependent and independent variables. So I figured we'll use this situation with the car to kind of go through and figure out which the dependent and independent is. But your independent is the one that's going to occur on its own. And then the dependent is going to happen based off of your independent variable. So in this case here, if I'm looking at the miles per hour, the independent is going to be the hours. If I look at feet per second, the independent is going to be the seconds. Because how many seconds or how many hours occur is going to determine how many miles or how many feet you've traveled. So the dependent is going to be miles or feet if I'm looking at the second scenario. So the number of hours that you have traveled will determine how many miles you've gone, and the number of seconds you have traveled will determine how many feet you have gone. I hope that this helped you to better understand some important aspects of measurements and how to choose the correct ones, and that you're better able to understand how many places you should be rounding your answers to. Thank you very much.